Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Scribe. And today, I am proud to say it's probably going to be my very, very special episode today. Now, I've been following me on my Instagram for this last week. You know, I've been keeping it under wraps for a long time, for a few days, realistically. And the reason why is that I have with me my most prolific guest on my channel. She was a participant of a derby that not many people know of, the Mongolian Derby. And to tell us all about that is a racer who partook in the Derby. And to tell us all about her experience and the build to it, joining us for the very first time on this podcast, let us bring to the fold Judith Jaeckle, otherwise known as the Iron Equestrian on Instagram. Judith, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you. So, Judith, tell us about yourself and how you got into your love for horses and what sort of drew you to the Mongolian Derby, or at least hearing about it.
Well, I grew up in Germany. I always wanted to ride. I didn't grow up in a horse family, but always wanted to ride, got riding lessons, and just kind of never stopped. Had my first own horse when I was 20. The equine therapist, so worked with kids and horses for a couple of years. And 2021, just after kind of COVID, we sold everything in Switzerland and moved to Australia, and I studied equine management. And that kind of gave me more background, more context. So when I finished last year, I got a job as a horse trainer and work now full-time with horses. When I was studying equine management, I met a lecturer. She's done the Mongol Derby in 2017. It's quite a big thing over in Australia, especially in the racing industry. It's well known, the Mongol Derby. There's some people, they've done it very successfally. So I kind of got into it, got curious, followed the races last year. There were 2 races last year because of COVID. They had stopped years before. And then I applied and got a spot for this year.
Awesome. And so a little bit of research of this listener. So the Mongolian Derby, like I said in the beginning, is unlike any derby anywhere else in the world. It's even very, very different from here in the States, the Kentucky Derby. The Mongolian Derby traces the actual routes, trade routes, courier routes of the Mongolian Empire during the reign of Genghis Khan. And if I'm not mistaken, Judith, it is probably like the longest race for like any horse-based competition. Is that right?
I think so. They call it the longest and toughest horse race in the world because it goes over 1,000 kilometers. And that's long.
That is pretty. That when I first heard about that of like the Mongolian Derby, I was like, I didn't know this was a thing. And then, of course, researching it, it was like fascinating. Now, as you said before, you got in contact with some of the people who raced last year and did a little research on the Mongolian Derby, and the question is on your own. So how long before that period did you decide, you know what, I'm going to dip my toe in it. I'm going to see if I can qualify for this. So walk us through that process.
All right. So it was last year's July and August race. I followed and really got attached to it and wanted to know everything about it. I applied in September last year, and that point I've been told 2023 is full, so I was on the wait list. But then they called me back in December last year. Said, well, a spot kind of came free, and you are in for 2023, which was amazing. But it gave me 7 months of preparation, which wasn't too much, but I'm riding a lot anyway every day. I usually ride like between 7 and 9 horses, depends. So I wasn't too worried about my preparation for that.
Wow, that's actually still like a 7 month. That's like a very, very small window just to get ready in the training. Which then actually leads into the next question is, so when you got the okay saying, okay, you're in, you have 7 months to train, was there any specific training that they required of you or that you had to do based on like the research of what exactly they were expecting of, you know, how much experience you have with horses, types of horses that are acceptable for training?
Yes, so you do with your application, you send in some videos and pictures of you riding. You have to have experience galloping a horse, so you just have to have experience how to ride fast horses. And you have an interview, so you talk. I talk mainly to Eric, and just kind of asking me some questions around horses and my experiences. I've done a bit of work before with race horses, so I think like I wasn't worried, he wasn't worried. We were talking a bit about my camping experience because I'm not a camper.
Oh,
That point, like that was my biggest concern, and that's what I've been told. Like really go out there with your horse and just get used to kind of sleep outside. That you are a bit more used to, like being outside with your horse.
dang, that is really interesting. And how many people do you know when you actually got in were actually in the race? Because I remember in our pre-record session, you said that almost like in the thousands or 10,000 applicants apply to the Mongolian Derby, but it's only like a select number that are chosen to actually race. So how many were actually within your group, or at least it's not group, but like for this year?
So we were 43, I think 43 people started the race, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think 28 finished.
Wow. Oh, dang, 28 finish out of 40. That's almost like a good half, but I can't imagine like the amount of like screening for the question is to see who can actually apply. I mean, that I've never heard of like a screening process for any kind of horse derby, but then again, this isn't your traditional horse derby. This is something completely new. And in that interview process, do you kind of get like a sense of like what the goal was of the Equestrianists for this derby? Like, what is the ultimate goal for those who are unaware of the Mongolian Derby's greater purpose?
Well, I think it's mainly the whole experience, just like being out there with the horses, experiencing the culture, experience the country. It's just so different, and you can't imagine before you actually were there and rode the Derby. So I think it's really creating this special experience for horse people, because we were all of us wanted to just get on the horse and get going, and that makes it so special. Like that, nowhere else in the world you can experience that. And those people you meet, the herders and like the Mongolian people, they're still so attached to their horses. They live with their horses. There are 3 million horses living in Mongolia.
Wow.
Amazing. You ride and there are like herds of horses, wild horses, kind of running with you or around you. So I think nowhere else in the world you can experience this.
That I would have to agree, and I actually like you brought up like Mongols' ties to the horses because you know, history, you know, like the ancient history is like a lot of the cultures have like horses, like either like equestrian based, but truly the nomads have like the deepest ties with the horse because that's their way of life. And it's really fascinating. Like we see like, oh, but a lot of other cultures have horses, not in the same sense as the Mongols or the Scythians or the Persians. I mean, that is tied to who they are. And we hear those stories of when you're a nomad or in nomadic history, you're taught to ride before you can walk, which is fascinating. And I can't imagine what it must be like just to be there and just see everything, which actually kind of leads into like a next few questions. So when you actually were in country, when all the racers were there, and it finally dawned on you, it was like, oh shoot, I'm actually here. Were you kind of a little scared, or at least a little intimidated at that point, saying, I'm actually going to compete in one of the toughest derbies or horse races in the world? I mean, there has to be at least a little bit of like anxiety to this.
Not at all. I know, like
Really?
the last of days before I left, I was kind of, should I get worried because I'm not worried at all? But
Oh my gosh.
I was just looking forward to like get on the horse. That was my reason why I was there, was just the horses and to ride. I didn't expect I enjoyed the whole experience that much, but there was no point where I was too worried or like got scared or anything. I was always just, I'm trying my best. I try to ride those horses and I try to have a good time. I never thought really about the competition. I just thought about me and the horse and having a good time.
Nice. So pretty much just enjoying the experience. It's once in a lifetime opportunity to be part of something huge rather than, trying to win the competition. Because, as a person that loves history, I can't imagine what it must be like to actually trail the same route as the ancient Mongolians, the couriers of that period. And if I'm not mistaken, Judith, you mentioned also during the pre-record session that the history behind the race, that at least the ancient roots was, if the couriers could pass through each of like the stages, they could be part of the Mongolian Empire, or at least travel through. So hearing that, did that just like increase your love for this experience even more?
Yes, definitely. When they told us about like the passport and how it kind of worked that times. I mean, if you pass these Genghis Khan statues and just get a little bit of that history, and it's so long ago, it's just crazy. But they all know about their history, and it's so important for them. So that just makes you, well, yeah, sit and think, wow.
It is kind of crazy and a little, we always hear about the Mongols, like how vast they were, and it's like, the horsemen, but you never truly really understand what it must have been like for them when you actually see the vastness and like the trail literally being like another piece of history saying this is the extent of how far the empire was and what it meant to be a rider. I mean, just from the photos I've seen like on the Instagram and from like other racers, it's like, holy cow, the endurance that the rider and the horse have to go through to like keep going. I mean, that is it's kind of scary, which I think you also brought up too, was that that the horses that were in country, like those are the horses that the riders had to use. If am I understanding that correctly, or if I'm remembering correctly?
Yes, for sure. So we rode the Mongolian horses. There were 1,500 horses prepared for this race. They were all vet checked, registered. So every horse had his paper with a picture. The vets, they knew exactly what's all about this horse. There were no horses used under 5 years. So not too young, not too old. Like, they took care that they're fit horses because they had to go for like 30 to 40 kilometers with us. And it's all about riding those Mongolian horses, but because they're so different to the horses we are used to. They're just very different horses.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you actually brought that up. So, listeners who may not have like seen like any documentaries of like Mongolian horses are a lot shorter and like stoutier than traditional Western European horses. They are not like the long legs as you see like Andalusians from Spain. or even like the horses of like the north. Mongolian horses are very, very unique, and I think that's what makes them even more special. They kind of have that Mustang aesthetic that you see here in the States, like the old, as we say, the old Indian ponies, which is also really, really fascinating. And the history of those horses as well. I mean, that's livelihood for people. Like that is literally, as you said, their way of life. That is tied to who they are. Everything revolves around the horse. And I just can't imagine like actually seeing a Mongolian pony. So when you actually got a chance to ride the Mongolian pony for the race, did you kind of had to like realize or readjust like the training in a sense that what may have worked for the horses that you were training with in that 7-month period may not work for like the Mongolian ponies, or was it kind of the same?
It was different, definitely. So those horses are just not as domesticated, like they're half wild. They're always free overnight. So they let their horses go. No fences. They're not used to fences at all. So you can't force a Mongolian horse to do something. You have no chance. One horse took off on me when I tried to resettle him in the morning.
Oh no!
There was no way of me holding onto that horse. They're so strong. And if they want to go, they're just going. For me, riding was one part and worked out pretty well because my system was kind of make friends with the horse first, put the horse always first, and then try to make the whole leg. And I had two very challenging horses. Was two stallions, and they kind of didn't really work with me. So there was a challenge to go like the whole 35 kilometers with a bucking stallion. But in the end, I mean, the last couple of kilometers, I still think we kind of made friends, and we came the whole way. So I was one of the riders. So we had to draw the horses in a lottery. There was a number, and then we had to ride this number of horse. The years it was like that. The years before, you could choose your horse yourself. We couldn't, and I think, one of the only riders who never changed a horse. So I just got along with all the 29 horses I got given, which I was very proud of. But of course, there are certain challenges with those horses.
Nice. So you just mentioned the changing of horses. So I imagine that there's like checkpoints along the trail, the race, that riders can swap out their current horse for a new horse. Because if I'm not mistaken, on the website, the Mongolian Jury, like these horses are really, really special, and they are, as you said, they're not truly domesticated. They're still a little bit wild. And I also remember you said that the horses didn't choose to be in this race. You chose to be in this race, the riders. So you had to be very, very respectful and careful with these horses. So was that always drilled into all the racers saying, do not exert the horse?
Yes, for sure. So that was the first thing we've been told. Horses or humans, you have to take care of your horse. That's just like the most important thing. And then, so there are 28 stations, kind of. You have the start line, you go, you have 28 stations you are going, and then station 29 is your finish. So you change 28 times your horse.
Wow.
Always you come into the next station, there's a vet check. So there are international teams of vets, 2 Mongolian vets and then international vets. They're checking on your horse. So they're checking how the horse looking. Did it have enough water? Is it dehydrated or is it fine? Is it lame? So you have to trot up your horse. And then they are checking the heart rate. And within the first 30 minutes, the heart rate has to be below 56 beats per minute. And I mean, the faster you are 56 or below, the faster you can give your horse away, fill up your water, and get on the new horse. So my system really was, and I developed that with time, to come in into camp 56 or lower. Didn't work out with every horse because horses are just different, and some horses got so spooky when we came into camp and there were people and maybe a camera, and so the heart rate went up a little bit. But most of the time I was able to come 56 or below, and I never got a vet penalty, which I was very proud of, which means if the heart rate didn't drop below 56 in the first 30 minutes, you'll get a vet penalty, which is 2 hours the first time, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then you.
Wow.
So it tells you really take care of your horse. Otherwise, you're not in this race anymore.
Dang, they really do take this derby very seriously, as they should. And they do take care of these horses, which they also should, because these are still wild animals. They're not broken. They're not domesticated. They're allowing you to ride these horses, but you have to, as you said, be knowledgeable and take care of these horses. So I'm actually really intrigued that they have this very, very, not delicate system, but very, very intricate system to make sure that the horses are all right. And which actually kind of leads me into like the next several questions. So during the 28 stages, I can imagine there may have been like some moments of like fatigue, some like a little bit of like being tired, because it's a long, I should say it's a long, long race. So what prompted did like you make to yourself throughout the whole trip saying, I'm gonna keep doing this, I'm gonna keep doing this, I need to keep doing this? Did you have, what prompt did you like you made to yourself when you began this journey?
Well, my goal was putting the horse first the whole time, just looking after my horse and finish this race. Those were like my goals I had when I started the race. I have to say, well, yeah, sure, there were moments in between where you felt exhausted and tired, and your knees got a little bit weak when you got off the horse between the stations. And you had like, okay, well, they are very wobbly at the moment. And kind of the last 10 kilometers of the day, they were pretty tiring for me. When I knew like it was a hot day and you've been going like for 130, 140 kilometers already. And you knew 10 kilometers into next camp, now really just keep going. But the horses made it pretty easy for me. I just enjoyed myself so much riding those horses, riding through this amazing scenery, and then always coming into these camps. All the people there were cheering you up, like they were telling,
like everyone was cheering you on. That sort of like kept, motivating you to like, keep going.
Yes, definitely. So they were, I feel like the longer I went, the more like respect I got from herders. So I think they liked, I tried and really get on with whatever does, and they started to giving me a little bit tips and talking about the horse. Like when I got on the horse, they were like, oh, this one needs a very low rein, or just hold that rein a little bit stronger, otherwise the horse is just taking off. Like they know their horses and they love their horses. Some of the horses are professional race horses, so they have races in Mongolia. They're going like 20 kilometers, and if you like had the number of the racehorse, everyone was like, racehorse, racehorse. And it just felt so nice that you felt the support of those people. They were so proud of their horses taking part in that race. And it just felt great. And it was a privilege to ride those horses. So that just made me keep going and just enjoying it, like from the first minute to the last minute.
Nice. So that would be like your why and what motivated you to still keep going, to like be a part of this tradition, this heritage of like keeping the sense of what it meant to be an equestrian during the time when being an equestrian was like a very, very, not only just a noble profession, but like a way of life. The respect with nature and the relationship with the horse. So that would you say is what still what continued to motivate you when you went through each of those stations after hours and hours of racing and just getting like tired and, like you said, legs wobble and making sure your horse is still in good condition.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And then like just if you get on the next horse and it was a really good horse and it just took off with you, you felt not tired at all. You felt like, oh wow, let's go again. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So when you ultimately completed the race, um, and also, as you said before, you got tips from the local herders in those camps, like, you know, how to like hold the reins and, you know, how to like help your horse in this situation. What was sort of like the collective feedback from all of that, from the herders, fellow racers, the people there, and also when you got back home and people heard about this?
Well, so firstly was kind of when I arrived in camp. So I came third. It was a very close race. I was
Wow.
I was in the lead for like a long time, or kind of in the leading group, until I lost my horse on day 7. I got all my gear and walked for 10 kilometers into the next camp. So that cost me 3 hours about.
Ooh.
Um, I still came third, and like I said, I never rode. But of course, it was an amazing feeling to come third. I came in on a heart rate on 52, which was the most important thing for me. So kind of straight away passed my vet check. Although like it was last day, last leg, I still was able to take care of my horse. And then I kind of, arrived there, and everyone was like, well done, good job. And I said, yeah, and I'm so proud I did not get a vet penalty. I did change one horse. And then people were, like really gave me this feeling, that's amazing. That's like something very special you achieved. Not getting this vet penalty, never changing a horse. So you clearly put your horse first, but you still came third. So for me, that's like the whole, what I get out of this, or what I'm telling people at home I'm getting out of this is you are able to put your horse first the whole time. Just take care of your horse, make friends with your horse, develop a good relationship, and then you can ride very competitive up in the front. So
Nice.
put your horse first, and they're taking care of you as well.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's actually really nice. Like you said, you know, all this feedback, being a part of this experience is incredible. And coming in third, that is a huge accomplishment. So again, congratulations on that crowning achievement. And I just can't imagine what that feeling must be like to not only come in third and win a medal, but also been a part of this once in a lifetime experience. And, you know, when we get to that point in our lives, you know, everyone, like, your whole world changed in the sense that you're now someone that people look up to. Has that ever like happened to you, like post Derby, with a lot of young equestrians now looking to you for like guidance and like, you know, tips and tricks?
Well, I am. So I'm used to coach children, to teach young adults. I guess I'm a coach at the local pony club here. So yes, I'm aware of that role. What I'm always teaching them is like, take care of your horses. That's just the most important thing for me, and I like to kind of give that advice to all the young riders. But of course, now my whole range got a little bit bigger, and I'm able to talk about my message, and that feels really good. If I can kind of inspire some young riders with like, it's really worth it. Get a good relationship with your horse, take care of your horse, and keep going no matter what. When I lost my horse that morning, first few seconds I thought, that's it. You've been in the lead the whole race, and now your horse is gone. That's it. And then I started thinking, like, okay, like, what are your options now? I could have waited for like the organizers, they would have given me a carry back into the last camp, which was 25 kilometers away. And then I could have ridden the whole leg again. But I was like, that takes too much time. So I took all my gear. I took my saddle, my 5-kilo saddlebag on my back, like a backpack. I put my water in the front. I had my helmet. I took everything and went for a walk for 5 kilometers through the wetlands, for 10 kilometers, sorry, through the wetlands. And when I arrived at the camp at about 10, I guess, everyone was like, that's amazing what you've just done. And I was like,
oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Well, there was no option for me giving up. I just wanted to finish the race. No one came past me in that whole 2.5, 3 hours I walked. So I still was in second place when I walked that 10 kilometers. I was on the next horse at 10:30 and I rode 3 more stations that day. So it's just kind of, just keep going. There are things happening all the time. That's the Derby. Like, that's why it's the toughest Derby. There were so many people losing horses, getting bucked off, having accidents, broken bones.
Ooh.
Like, yeah, I just lost a horse. I didn't lose my gear. That's just what it is. So start thinking, what are your options? And then just keep going.
That is like a very, very headstrong approach, and there has to be like a little bit of like risk in that, because going like that whole distance without a horse, just walking to the Badlands and hoping that your directions are correct, that you're going to arrive at the next station at this point in time. That's kind of scary, because you could get lost. I imagine you could get lost very, very easy, or get off track by like a mile or something. But you arrived there, and like everyone's saying, you do realize you just walked 2 hours from your previous station to here without a horse. And it's like, as you said, I didn't have any other choice. I had to keep going. That is quite the very, very headstrong attitude, which I guess comes like a lot of experience and like never giving up personality. And I guess that kind of like comes with, like, as you said, like years of training, years of experience, molding into like the kind of racer you want to be. So looking back at that, and this is kind of going way back into like the beginning of the segment, who would you say has been like your role model or like your mentor that kind of molded you into this racer, this very confident, positive, headstrong person that you are now?
Well, my role model, I think, rider-wise, just a person I really look up. I don't know him personally, but it's a famous rider from Germany, Michael Jung. He's an eventer. He achieved everything you can achieve in the top level. He won world championships and all the big events. But he's a very kind horse person. So he grew up in the I'm from, and I always looked up on him, and I just could see he's not like this very strong, tall guy riding horses. He's little. He's very kind with the horses, and that always secured me. Well, I'm doing it the right way, because I'm not a like strong person. I'm little. I'm not very heavy. And sometimes you struggle with those big horses. And some people are telling you, you are not tough enough. You have to like with a different way with horses. You have to be tougher. You have to be stronger. But he was the one that always ensured me, yeah, I can do it. I'm tiny, but I can do it. I can handle those horses just with being kind and having a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest is kind of life experience. I was working with I studied education. I was working with kids for a long time. I think I'm a very patient person. And then like meeting my lecturer in last year when I was studying and hearing her stories about the race and she giving me tips and preparing myself for the race. Like kind of all of this came together. And yeah, I think I'm a person, I'm very positive. I just try to keep going. I moved with my little boy and my husband to Australia just 1.5 years ago. We had to keep going for a long time. It's just what it is sometimes. And I'm not worried about like when problems are coming up, just try to solve them.
Nice. I love that. I love that positive attitude, this sense of like, things in life are going to happen, but you can't always like look at it like negatively. You always have to be like very open to it. And it's also, in a sense, if you can complete one of the challenging thing, in this case, the Derby, pushing yourself beyond your limits in something that is completely out of your comfort zone, you have nothing to prove to anybody. And you have nothing to prove to anybody at all. Because if you can do that, then there's nothing you can't do. And I love that, as you said, that's kind of like everything together with your mentor, learning, being like with a horse doctor, building a relationship with your horses and teaching, that kind of culminating to this person that's like really, really positive. And I love that. I love that you have that very, very positive energy. And which kind of leads to the next other few questions. From the experience that you have from the Mongolian Derby, how do you think that will help you going forward? Besides in the sense of, I can take care of anything because I've just gone through this really, really difficult experience. And did you take what you've learned from like the herders and the horse caretakers there and applied it to how you take care of your horses back home in Australia?
Yes, so first thing when I finished the Derby, I was like, I feel so confident right now. That's always like a little bit my problem. I'm not too confident. I'm not like the person going like first in and talking to everyone. So, but that Derby really kind of gave me all the confidence I maybe did not have before, and really ensured me it's the right way how you work with horses, because it worked before, sure, but I was able to kind of work with my way. I didn't have really to change a lot. My riding was much more basic for those horses, for sure. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, how I kind of approach a horse and try to get a relationship and make friends with them was just what I'm doing at home. When people were asking me, I was just like, I'm just here riding horses. Like, it's not a big deal. And it just gave me all the confidence. Yeah, I'm doing it right. If I'm able to do this on 29 Mongolian horses, maybe it's really a good way what I'm doing. So, and that's, of course, that helps me with my job. I feel much more able to kind of approach people and say, well, here, I'm a horse trainer. I'm offering horse training. I've done this. I achieved this. Yeah, I can train a horse. That's fine. So
right.
that really.
So it's almost kind of this sense of self validation that what you've learned and what you've experienced in Australia with your horses, being a horse trainer, and then transferring that knowledge to the Mongolian horses. Again, picking up things from in country and applying it to your method, but not having to change too much. It's really like that sense of like, I'm actually doing the right thing to do. I actually am doing the proper techniques to, like I said, build that relationship with the horse, actually make it, comfortable around me, not have it be afraid of me. And it's almost like if you were like a teacher and teaching almost like for like so many years in one area and then trying that same method or that style of teaching in another place and getting the same results. That's very, very similar because it tells you what you are doing is correct. And that kind of leads into another question of mine is, have you ever come into other horse trainers, either like at the Mongolian Derby or just like online saying, we've seen how you work with your horses. You're actually doing like an incredible job. Have you ever gotten that kind of like feedback or that kind of like validation from the other trainers, or none, if that's ever come up?
Well, so like I said, I definitely felt that in Mongolia. So that people, herders, and for me, especially the Mongolian vets were telling me that I'm doing a good job. I think I developed a pretty good relationship with all of the vets, but for me, it was very special when there was one man and one woman with the man, the Mongolian, that really started talking to me. So he always had a translator because he didn't speak much English and I can't speak Mongolian.
Right.
Every time I saw him again, he would like started talking a little bit more and starting asking me questions, what I think about the horses and how I'm going. And kind of at the finish camp, he would offer me like a chair next to him at dinner. And I like, that felt amazing to me, kind of getting this respect from a Mongolian man who works with horses.
Right.
And he really thinks I've done a good job. And of course, yeah, when I came back home, I got lots of feedback, which was, yeah, felt great.
Awesome. So now going back to the last few questions of this segment of this interview, when you arrived in Mongolia, and then before, when you arrived there and leaving Mongolia, did you make any friendships with other racers from like around the world? Because that's another thing we didn't get a chance to say, or we did say this briefly, that the Mongolian Derby gets everybody from around the world. So you have people from all over the globe participating in this. So did you meet like other racers from around the world and kind of learn like their story? And are you still in contact with them to this day?
Yes, definitely. So I wrote, or kind of met a lot in the camps with Linda, who won the race. She's done a great job. She's from Sweden. Met with Matt and Xavier during the race. We were kind of in the front group. And so we were either alone in the camps or we met each other. I didn't meet anyone kind of from the back, but those were the people we kind of met in between. And of course, we were able to talk. And then I'm still in contact with 2 racers from the US. So we were together at start camp and we had a great time, like 3 racing days. And I was just very lucky. The first day I had 3 very fast horses, so I was gone and had no idea actually what they are doing, how they are doing, until I arrived at finish camp and I was able to ask, oh, where are they? What are they doing? And one of them had like quite bad luck with like lame horses, lost horses.
Oh.
Gear. He like continued the race without having a sleeping bag and needed like new stirrups and no jackets, like terrible. And 2 more girls, they were kind of riding more in the back, had their own challenges and struggles, but they finished, like they kept going as well. They've done a great job and they both finished. And we are still in contact. We're like, you come back home and no one really understands what you were going through and understands this whole experience. So it's hard to come home and tell people about it. So it's really nice to stay in contact and just talk about memories and share pictures and like, oh, you remember that day? That was so funny, or that was terrible. Yeah.
Nice. Seems like we have the creation of a fellowship of equestrians.
Yeah.
That would be a great group chat for like on Instagram. But actually, well, that's maybe already taken with the equestrian group. But still, it's great that you've able to make these bonds with these fellow racers from around the world and everything. And would you kind of almost say that you guys were also each other's supporters throughout the race? Whenever you meet them at the not just at the finish line, but at the individual stages to like talk. And another thing, which before I do forget, were you able to keep in contact with family throughout the race at these stages, or was there like no contact with the outside world? Not outside world, but outside of the race.
There was no contact at all. So when we left Ulaanbaatar and came into start camp, some people still had service on their phones. I didn't. I don't know. I tried, but I didn't. I was at least able to use a different phone from someone on my birthday, because it was my birthday when we arrived at start camp. So I like could get some messages and at least like quickly chat with my son, because like obviously I really missed him.
Right.
And then I lost my phone in between stations.
Oh, yes.
There was nothing for me. Again, when I arrived at Finnish camp, someone gave me his phone, and I was able to have one call with my husband and my son, which was amazing. But otherwise, I didn't have any contact. I didn't have Facebook. I did not know what's going on, what pictures were shared on Facebook. Eric, when I arrived after walking in camp, Eric gave me like a little hint. Roberta is watching and telling you keep going, which was just so nice to hear at that moment. But yeah, I had nothing, like no messages,
Wow.
no hints or help from outside, not at all. It was me, the horse, and my GPS.
Wow. And also pretty much like the support of like the other racers, like keep going, keep going. So you guys were literally your own support group for those that couldn't like talk to like family or friends outside of the race, or even just getting a signal. And that also is really, really cool that you, as you said, you're able to make these bonds with like these racers, because it was you guys all alone. Yes, you had the vets there. Yes, you had the other people of the Derby hosting it. They were there, but it was just you guys. No one else, just you and your horse. That was it. But still able to make those friendships, those bonds is incredible. And still talk about it, which is amazing. And we're now reaching the end of this wonderful interview. So my last question, probably my most powerful question, I always ask my guests is, Judith, so looking back on everything from your own experiences to training for the Mongolian Derby, arriving there, experiencing everything, seeing the green plains, those beautiful valleys of green with the horses, experiencing Mongolia for the first time. What is your word of wisdom to others wishing to pursue the Mongolian Derby and want to test their mettle and see if they have what it takes to be a part of this proud journey, this tradition, and overall once-in-a-lifetime experience?
Well, just go and do it. I recommend it to everyone who's a rider. Obviously, you need to be an experienced rider. You need to be able to adapt to the whole situation and to your horse. Like if you're an experienced rider, if you love horses and if you love the challenge, because there are so many challenges and no one can tell you what happens before, but go and do it. It's worth it. Like it's a once in a lifetime experience for most of us who are doing it. And it's just, people are telling you before, oh, well, it can't change your life. And I was like, I don't know, I'm pretty happy with my life. I don't know what I should change. But for me, it was totally getting this confidence and just being able to say, well, I've done that. And that was pretty amazing. And I had a great time. And there's nothing else in the world really compares to doing that race. And it's absolutely worth every effort. For sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Spoken like a true teacher, true mentor. So, and with that, listeners, we will conclude today's wonderful interview. Probably, I got to give a round of applause. This has probably been like my best interview thus far on my channel. But before we officially close it, I wanted to give a special thank you to our guests here, Judith Jaeckle. Judith, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find and engage with you? They want to know more about the Mongolian Derby and also possibly get into being a horse trainer or just learn about your experiences as a horse trainer.
Well, basically, maybe just contact me on Facebook. I still have my Judith Mongol Derby Ride page, which I do a little bit of updates and just wait for pictures to update it there. I'm on some newspaper and radio shows in Australia at the moment. So I send updates over there. So just try and contact me on Facebook or on my Instagram page. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll link all those down below so you can go and check out. And again, I want to give a special thank you to Judith for joining us today. This has probably been my favorite interview. I am so happy that we were able to do this, listeners. I hope you enjoy. Comment down below what was your favorite part of the interview and what did you learn about the Mongolian Derby? And are you thinking of possibly entering next year's Derby? Leave a comment down below. And this concludes this wonderful interview on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Scribe, signing out, and we'll see you in future episodes.